Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the payoff.
The champ is here. And I'm with Jeff, my co-host.
That's right.
Jeff, how the hell are you doing?
I'm feeling, I got the post WrestleMania blues. I know that happens to a lot of us sometimes, but moving forward, upward and onward, as they say. We're on the road to Backlash at this point. WrestleMania Backlash, as they've been referring to it. So, we'll just see what happens. But overall, just right back into it,
I saw someone suggest they just add WrestleMania to every pay-per-view. So WrestleMania, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, Hell in the Cell to really leverage that brand, as Stephanie McMahon would like to say.
That the WrestleMania Money in the Bank, I would pay that for that pay-per-view. That's one that I would definitely invest in.
Well, it sounds like the ratings on Peacock have been pretty good.
I know recently you and we didn't really talk about it much, but I know they had the recent kind of financial calls. I thought it was kind of funny how Hunter referred to, like, they're fighting people texting, like that is something that's taking from their market, is like people are texting during shows and things like that, or into the evening and not watching more TV. Like, yeah, okay, sure. Like,
and they're so focused on their texting that they don't have any other, television or music or any other form of media going on,
because we're not completely overloaded with like stimulation to this point. Right, okay. Roman's hurt or whatever it was the excuse last time around. Like, okay, we'll see. Okay,
any announcements before we get started?
I don't think so. I not that I can think of, at least. Just kind of we're plugging away.
So we always talk about why we are covering the match. Where do we remember where we found this one from? Was this just on a list of best matches of all time?
We've said it on the show before, kind of why we pick some of these matches that we do. And so we're trying to, find things that are, on the network to kind of help out our listeners. So if they want to check these things out and they go back to it. And this was one. Yeah, I think that it was just one of those. I think I was just searching best Backlash matches. And so in this month, you'll see that we've got a bunch of Backlash coming your way. And so get ready for that. I think this was just one of the ones that, like you said, you didn't really remember this one.
I've never heard of this match. I had never heard of this match. I don't remember anything about it.
And I know it was ranked, we'll get there, but it was ranked well. And so, it just kind of getting into this. It did have a kind of just an interesting build, I say, a lot of post-Mania stuff. But just weird. I say not a weird time, but just an interesting time. Like, we'll just get into it. I mean, there's really, we're doing it. We're at that point now. Let's cover it.
All right. It's time for the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So Backlash 2007, Jeff, historically, these Backlash pay-per-views usually seem to deliver. I just, in kind of the pay-per-view era, I just remember them always being good. In fact, not to give it away, but the match we're covering next week, I thought actually was better than their WrestleMania match. And so there's often times where, for whatever reason, the Backlash match was better, or the other thing that I've seen too is where the Backlash match maybe had a cool stipulation. So we'll get to it here in a second, be it a last man standing match. So sometimes you got a little more, gimmicky and some bells and whistles, but the actual matches were better than the WrestleMania ones. So April 29th, 2007, Phillips Arena in Atlanta, packed house, 14,000. Dark match was Carlito defeating Johnny Nitro. Now, what do you prefer, Johnny Nitro or John Morrison is the name?
Johnny Nitro is definitely a better name. Talk about two guys that still around, though. Hey, it's 2021 and these guys both on the card again.
So then we had the Hardys retaining their tag team championship against Cade and Murdoch. Melina, who's your single or is your women's champion, would defeat Mickie James to keep her title. Mickie James, someone that's recently been in the news. We're going to talk about that.
We'll get into
probably
that
later on today. Yes, we will. Chris Benoit, your U.S. champion, retains in 13 minutes against MVP. So we start off with 3 straight title matches and 3 straight retentions, but then we get a title change. Your ECW champion, Bobby Lashley, is going to lose a 3-on-1 match to Vince and Shane McMahon in Umaga. Vince McMahon's your new ECW champion.
Sure.
Wasn't looking for a comment. I just wanted that to settle in.
Yep. I'm just acknowledging it. Yep. I'm listening.
Yeah, and then in our string of champions retaining. So every match on this show was a title match, isn't that it?
I was just thinking that even when I typed these notes, this is a Night of Champions card. This is before it even was a thing. Undertaker
and Batista are going to go to a draw in a last man standing match. So we're continuing that feud. Jeff, it's interesting because in an interview not that long ago, Batista said his best match of his career was against The Undertaker at the WrestleMania in Detroit. That was just prior to this show. And I'm like, I don't really remember that one. I need to go back and watch. It's like a 10-minute match or something. So I'm like, well, how good could a 10-minute match be? It was awesome. So next year I want to cover that one. It was a really, really, really good match. So these two they gelled. And I'm sure this match was awesome too. And then the main event, Cena, Orton, Edge, and Shawn Michaels. Talk about some star power. So we're gonna cover this one. And again, I remember some things that happened at WrestleMania. I just don't remember this match at all. So I'm curious about the build. Walk us through it, Jeff.
Yeah, so we got a few things that were happening here. And these guys were, I say these guys, Edge, Cena, Orton, Michaels, they were at the top of the card through all this. And so I'll kind of go through each of them, but there's a lot of crossover too. So it saves a little bit of time so we can get into this match. So of course you've got this fatal 4-way match for the WWE Championship as the main event on this card. Cena, I'll start with in his 2007 began. He actually had a storyline with Kevin Federline. For those of you that might be a little bit younger or a little bit older and don't care like me. Kevin Federline was at one point the boyfriend, husband, don't even remember, of Britney Spears. And so he had his 2 weeks of viral fame. And so anyways, that, Cena had been feuding with him, sure, non-wrestler. But the first Raw of the new year, 2007, Cena was actually pinned by Federline. There was an assist from Umaga. Sure. And so that's how his year started. But then you had New Year's Revolution, Cena actually beating Umaga. This was the end of his undefeated streak. He actually retained the WWE Championship on that match. And then at Royal Rumble, Cena beating Umaga was the last man standing match. We have actually discussed that match back in February, not too long ago. So that's when go back in the archives, check it out from that Royal Rumble. And so then the night after, there was really just kind of an impromptu tag match. You had Cena and Shawn Michaels taking on Rated RKO, the two, so everyone in this match in a tag match, and Michaels and Cena, just getting thrown together, win the tag champs. So Cena was actually a double champ in this match. And actually beating Michaels as well too, to retain his title at WrestleMania 23. So Cena, just riding high at this point. So Michaels was actually one of the final 2 people in the Royal Rumble. He was eliminated by the Undertaker,
which was that classic finish.
Yep.
Where they went 10 minutes or something before the end of that. It was so cool.
Which Tom said already kind of led into the Undertaker and Batista. It was my hometown of Detroit. I was at that Mania 23 at Ford Field. That was for the World Heavyweight Championship. So, but Michael still earned the number 1 contender for the WWE Championship because he beat Orton and Edge. It was a triple threat match. And so that is why we had the Cena Michaels match at WrestleMania 23. So in the build to just the WrestleMania match, and then this, Michaels beating, Rated RKO, Edge, and Orton. And so to take on Cena. Now, Edge and Orton on this piece of it, that actually these guys were, it was, just really at the beginning of the year that Edge went to Orton and they decided to form a tag team because it was D-Generation X, who was the classic DX, Triple H and Shawn Michaels had reformed. And so they agreed to form their tag team, Rated RKO. You actually had them defending, they were the world tag champs, and so defending those against DX, which they got attacked by DX. Triple H actually got hurt during that match as well too, and so Rated RKO actually just continued the rivalry with Michaels. While I forget if it was a pectoral or shoulder. I was reading it, but I didn't put it in my notes exactly what it was. But hurt himself in this match. So again, now interestingly enough too, while Michaels and Undertaker were the final two in that Royal Rumble, the two eliminated before that were Edge and Orton. And so the final four of that Royal Rumble was three of the competitors in this match. And so they were I was very careful typing my notes up for this one because there's so much crossover. There was so much I didn't want to confuse even myself with, that how these guys were involved just in the really 4 months, 5 months leading up to this match, as well as like previous to this with WrestleMania. Like they were just in each other's worlds, plain and simple. And so, like I said, then, being eliminated from the Rumble, then the night after, you've got the impromptu tag match with Cena and Michaels winning that one. And then now, why are they rated RKO at this point? Like, kind of what's going on during this match? Like, they lost the tag titles after, of course, to Cena and Michaels, and then they focused on the WWE Championship. And so, which again, Cena had. And so since both of them going after it, being the big names in the company, things like that, losing that triple threat match, which then gave Michaels the opportunity against Cena, that's just how it worked out. Now at that WrestleMania card, while Michaels and Cena took on each other, I'll say that Orton and Edge were part of a Money in the Bank ladder match at that WrestleMania. That WrestleMania was actually won by Mr. Kennedy. So, everybody's in each other's universes and things like that. And so you then there's a no contest. It was a number one contenders match for the championship where, of course, shenanigans, as we're both used to, like both men's shoulders were down, wasn't sure exactly what was going on or things like that. So you had Orton and Michaels trying to figure out what was them having that match and then the no contest. It was actually that same night that Edge came out, of course, his talk show, which, the talk shows work. It's something we don't talk about a whole lot on the show, but like those talking segments, if you got the right person, and Edge and of course Christian, like those were always really great kind of watching those. So doing the cutting edge, saying that Jonathan Coachman, who was the Raw general manager at the time, said that he was the number one contender and that he would get the opportunity to wrestle for the WWE title. So you've got Cena has the belt. Orton and Michaels had a match where it was a no contest, and then Edge just declaring through Jonathan Coachman as GM that he is the number one contender. So, kind of a nice way that this was kind of capped off, and it's something we don't talk about, especially with Cena. You got to wonder if he was involved with this to a degree. That it was actually a Make-A-Wish kid who was the honorary general manager who was given the opportunity to announce this fatal four-way at Backlash. And so from a storyline perspective, it all makes perfect sense why these guys need a match together. That Cena defending, that he has a history with everybody's got some crossover and history with each other. Let's put him in a four-way. Let's see what happens and where we kind of go from there. And to your point, I'll talk about it a little bit more after that. One of the quotes that I kind of found for this one was that there was a shocking lack of interest in the WWE Backlash pay-per-view, which was too bad. And then I will finish the rest of that quote later because we're going to talk about this match. We're going to get into it. We got things to talk about. But I would say just four guys really in their prime at this time get locked up in a fatal four-way.
Yeah, you're right. And what's interesting is going into this, right? I'm thinking, well, they just threw these four guys together. What you just said, though, I mean, everything was so intertwined, it made so much sense. So, how sometimes you get these triple threats or these, fatal four ways where, the champ will be in the ring and then 3 different guys will walk in and interrupt each other, and it'll be like, oh, it's a 4-way. Well, this actually makes sense. And the star power is unbelievable. The build for this was awesome. There's so much stuff happening. So I'm pumped to get into it. So if you want to watch with us, we're at the 2 hour and 13-minute mark on Peacock, which for our international listeners, it's the same timestamps on the WWE Network. So 2 hours and 13 minutes. They're all in the ring. We're ready to go. Jeff, are you ready to go?
I am ready to go. Like, I haven't watched this in either of you in a long time. So, we're ready.
Well, then let's get to the payoff.
Ho! It's time for the payoff.
All 4 in there. You got King and JR on commentary. Hey, let me start off with this. Look at Cena's ring gear. Do you think that the kind of goofy ring gear is one of the many things about him that makes him dislikable? Like, do you think that they just, with the jean shorts or with the cargo shorts, or do you, because I look at his presentation, it's like, Shawn Michaels, greatest in-ring worker of all time, Edge, again, wrestling tights, makes perfect sense. Orton, the traditional, just wrestling trunks. It's like those are 3 athletes that are, competing, and then you've Cena just looking like a goofball. And I just do you think that's part of why people just get annoyed with it?
I think it's who you talk to, because I know for a fact, I have a friend who has said the only man that she will fuck in jorts is John Cena. So maybe it's just you and me that, we are not the target demographic for that. She's just a big fan, she loves Cena, I guess, but yeah, I think that I wonder too, with how good he was in the ring for so long. You especially hear I always think back to, who was it? Dean Ambrose saying he hated wrestling in jeans. It was just terrible moving around. I wonder for Cena, so much of the character, I've never heard him or seen anything where he said he disliked or, what he had his ring gear as. But yeah, part of it too is the presentation. I've never really thought about it till you said it, but yeah, it makes sense.
I just look at it. It's like, his personality is so goofy and stupid, which is annoying. But then, you throw in this ring gear and it's like, all right, you got the big tennis shoes and it looks kind of stupid. The shorts, it's like it's slapping it over your head that this is all fake and goofy. It doesn't. I like my wrestling presented as athlete 1, athlete 2. We're going to find out who's the best in this physical competition. And I just think that, when you deviate too far from that, it just looks stupid. And I think, an Undertaker or a Bray Wyatt, I think you can get away with different types of ring gear. It's just, if Cena's going to be this jacked up, huge megastar Hulk Hogan type, I don't like the gear.
Well, I wouldn't say Bray Wyatt because they don't know what they're doing with that guy. But
yeah, I know. But I'm just saying.
To your point, yeah, absolutely. So we had the face off with Michaels and Cena, and they took out Edge and Orton outside the ring. Now you've got Edge and Orton inside the ring. So just kind of, I say different teams kind of feuding back and forth, and you got Michaels and Cena are on the outside at this point. So
way less tattoos on Orton.
And a much younger Edge in there as well too. Yeah.
True that Vince said or thinks that Edge looks old now?
I don't know. I think I've read that.
Did you hear that
too?
One?
Yeah. And who knows? Who knows? So we are hearing, and this is a good transition. We are hearing a lot of, when we are recording, there is a lot of backstage news coming out of WWE this week, almost an obscene amount of stuff that it's crazy how much we're hearing right now.
Yeah, part of it was the earnings call. That definitely presented a bunch of news and noteworthy things. Again, that the earnings call just happened at the time we're recording this. So
I think
that's part of it. But there just seems like a lot of news in general.
We're fresh on the Tuesday night move, I think. So there's a lot of, and the ratings have gone up for both, which, they're not competing against each other. So that kind of makes sense. So yeah, I just kind of things happening. So you got everybody on the outside, Michael's climbing the turnbuckle.
Wow, that's a good one.
Wow. Yep. Back moonsault, just hitting them.
Let me tell you something. You brought up the earnings call, and let me make a very very big and important statement, because I mean this wholeheartedly. This is not a throwaway comment. We, as in WWE fans, do not deserve Nick Khan.
Yeah.
This guy is brilliant. Okay. If for those that are listening to this that haven't already heard it, go find Nick Khan on Colin Cowherd's podcast. It was just a straight interview. Nick Khan used to be Colin Cowherd's agent when he was a sports agent.
Few of Adnan too. That's why he's announcing.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Nick Khan is brilliant. He's super well connected. He has a ton of credibility in the entertainment world. I have no idea why he took the WWE job. I mean that wholeheartedly. We are so lucky to have him. Now, look, the current product sucks, but he's not involved in booking. He doesn't write the storylines. He has nothing to do with it. So what I find so interesting, Jeff, is the WWE business, okay? They're on Peacock. They're more available than they've ever been. You can watch everything for free or $5 or $10 a month. The business of WWE is so much better than it's ever been. There's no time better to be a fan in terms of the ability to watch the product, ton of content, everything's available. Peacock opens up more doors than even the network did, and the network was awesome. So, I mean, again, this has nothing to do with storylines. This has nothing to do with anything except the fact that as a business, they are doing an absolutely incredible job, and Nick Khan is the real deal, and he's bringing in the real deal of people in the entertainment and business world. So this is only the beginning. You're going to see more stuff. You're going to see more major things happen. WWE is going to be largely, and better distributed all over the globe. I mean, I'm just blown away by what they're doing. Again, this has nothing to do with storylines at all. But from a business standpoint, it's incredible what they're doing right now.
So I was actually wrong. Like, it was actually Khan that made this comment about, and I'll quote it here. He was asked if WWE thinks about AEW or cares about them. He said, obviously everything is competition for everything. The movies are our competition. People sitting and deciding just to text all night is our competition. All we're focused on is attracting eyeballs to our content. And so, that was a quote from him. And he has been, when we're recording this, he has been in the news, the dirt sheets a lot this week, because he's firing people. Like, they've had some shit that happened backstage. Like, he is all over the place. And even I was confused the first time I saw his name. Oh, Cena taking a huge dive. They're missing it. I thought it was like related to Tony Khan. Like, I thought they were talking about that at the time, and I had double take. I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, it's somebody else. Like, and I don't know when they brought him in. Like, that's one thing. Like, it was obviously
it's been about a year now, I think.
It was, because I was gonna say, was it summer? Yeah. And so, but this week was obviously like chopping block was this week. Yeah.
Well, look, I know people get so caught up in these, talent cuts and in these, a lot of action in the ring too. Really, really good match. People get so caught up about these talent cuts, but Jeff, I mean, these aren't lifetime contracts. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're talent, and they're independent contractors that are talent. And, it's no different than a musician or an actor or anyone else. And, if they have nothing for the person, they don't owe someone an income for the rest of their life.
Well, and I did appreciate and it made me really think about it. And I don't have a fully formulated opinion on this one. And I'd be interested what you think too, that the article was about, it was actually Billy Kay. and how WWE went against their own mantra of like, if you get an opportunity, take it and make the most of it. I won't deny, like, has done a good job with like this resume angle that she had before she, was fired and let go, future endeavors. And like, she did make the most of it, and then she still got fired for it. So like the whole point of the article was they're not even there. There's definitely a shift in the winds, if you will, because the old way is like things that, whether they were just, preconceived notions or, things just were always that way for a long time. So that's what we felt like things are definitely changing because they're just not, certain things are not being handled the way they used to be.
Well, to me, I think maybe the most egregious example of someone that got themselves over and then was punished for it was Zack Ryder. I mean, those YouTube videos he was putting together were off the charts incredible. Yeah. And they did nothing with the guy, So, yeah, I know it sounds good to say, oh, well, take it upon yourself and get yourself over. Look, and again, it's probably no different than anything else in Hollywood, but because that's really what this is. It's an entertainment company that runs itself like Hollywood. They like you or they don't like you, and another thing to keep in mind is without fans right now, I don't think they have a clue who is and is not over.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they look at certain metrics on social media to see discussion or positive and negative sentiment. But, how did they used to make decisions back in the day? Well, they made decisions based on the audience. Yep. You'd sit through the curtain and you just listen, and, oh, well, we just did a house show loop in the Northeast in New York and Boston and Philadelphia. And holy shit, this guy that, we weren't that high on, people went nuts for him. So maybe we should push him. So now that we don't have that, you really don't know who is and is not over, which means the fans have less influence now than they had a year ago, certainly 5 or 10 years ago. And I think that's a major, major problem right now. They just don't know who's moving the needle. Yeah, they have T-shirt sales. Yeah, they can see social media chatter. But in terms of like a live audience, it's really tough. Oh, and by the way, if there is no crowd, you don't have to abide by anything. So, Daniel Bryan not winning or even participating in that Royal Rumble, the fans let you know. But right now, there are no fans. So they can just do whatever the hell they want, and they think they know best. And they really have no idea who is and is not over. And it's creating a lot of major problems. So it's to the fans' benefit for us to get back in front of an audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're trying. We know that. So even with some of the big four, if you will. So we've had a lot. We've been kind of watching that. We've been talking a lot here, but kind of, back to this match a little bit. So we've had a lot like individual spots with different guys. You had Edge and Orton, had Michaels kind of locked up and kind of a submission. Each had a half crab, if you will. And then Cena kind of clearing the rings and things like that. It hasn't been. Sometimes when you get four guys in the ring, it's very sloppy, and it just it's hard that you can tell they're not very coordinated with four guys out there, but they're doing a good job right now of kind of focusing on individual guys or just one-on-one of kind of what's happening and things like that. Now you got Michaels with Orton up on the table going for something, pile driver or something, and Edge hits him with a chair at the back. And so they've done a good job of, I say, setting up the spots on this one so that it doesn't look just too, and Orton giving him the thumbs up like the tag team there, but then betrayal
to the head.
Yeah,
like clean. Year we're watching. Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, clean chair shot there from Edge to hit Orton. Yeah, after he kind of saved him as well too. So everybody's on their feet too.
Oh yeah, no, this is a great match. There's always intrigue as to who's going to win too. Any of these four guys obviously is capable of being world champ. Cena's got the SCFU in on Edge. Dude, you've heard me say it on here before. Look at his arms. I mean, look how have you seen a more fake submission ever.
He's not even really
in the history of wrestling. Is there a more fake submission than John Cena locking this bullshit?
That looked really bad there too, because his arms kind of dropped. His arms dropped a little bit. Edge did a good job of putting his chin down, but yeah, there's not really anything. I think part of it maybe the leg, and he got the leg tied up, and maybe the crank there, but I doubt it. But fans excited for it though. Yep, go ahead.
There's some rumors swirling that SummerSlam is going to have an audience, and I guess Phoenix, my hometown, is in the mix. How cool would that be?
Yeah, that's one definitely that, it'd be really nice. I'm fine with that because, yes, I get like the small venues like arenas. It could be tough. Like there's just a lot. It varies from state to state. Like, policing it is difficult, at least if they're doing it in some of these outdoor stadiums. Like, hey, if there's nothing going on, like, yeah, why not? Because the Royal Rumble was Diamondbacks, right?
It was, yeah.
It was at the baseball stadium, so you obviously couldn't do that right now.
Yeah, I'm guessing they would do football, which they've had WrestleManias there before. So I'm thinking like it'd be pretty cool to do like open air, stadium for SummerSlam. Well, and the thing is with like distancing, even if you don't do a great crowd, you'll never know because they can just say it was due to social distancing, right? Well, and so I mean, they could configure it for 30,000 people, and it would still look great on TV.
Well, and they did the cardboard cutouts, which apparently Vince wasn't a fan of those for a while, but then they still did them, which, it does like, and when you're in the moment in the match, like you're only seeing that lower, 10th of the arena anyways. So it's really not a big deal at that point. So Michael's tuning up the band now. He's got Cena in the ring. But Edge, trying to come in, stop him. These guys too, they're moving well. Like, I say,
you made a great point. You're like, these guys are all basically in their prime.
Yeah, I'd say Mike. I don't want to say Michaels is past it. He's not, but he's I feel like he's been around the longest.
He's still in his prime. He'll still go out there.
And so just power slamming guys as well too. And again, just looking good in the chaps too, which someone pointed out to me. There's no, what was the comment I heard? Like, if they're not assless chaps, there's just pants. Like, and so, or you can't have that or something like that. I forgot. I'll have to look it up. But
this match is really heating up, man. So you got Cena going for
we got big spot here. What's going on? Yeah.
Wow.
Oof. Yep. They didn't try to flip him. That was good. They just kind of cascade suplex, backbreaker, everything. Yeah.
So Mike Chioda is the ref in this match.
Yes. Your buddy.
Look, hell of a nice guy. Okay. Doesn't really have much to say though. He was on a podcast I was listening to like last week or the week before. And I'm like, oh man, this guy, he was in WWE for 20 some years. He probably has all these incredible stories. Jeff, I there was nothing that was worth me telling you about in an hour-long interview. I don't know if it was a lousy interview. It was, it's that guy, I think he does some stuff with AEW, that Chris Van Fleet. I think we've seen him at StarCast or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. He does some stuff in wrestling. I don't know. He's not the best interviewer. In Kyoto, I mean, I don't even know what they talked about for an hour. I mean, it was so uninteresting.
Oh boy, Cena got Well, at some point, some people.
Wow.
So RKO out of nowhere. Yep.
HBK going for the super kick. RKO out of nowhere. So Michaels is out. Edge is still standing.
Edge is trying to suplex or slam both Edge and Orton. Yeah. Or Michaels. Yeah. All kinds of things happening at this point. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I was talking to a friend actually this week because she's getting interviewed she's a physical trainer. She's getting interviewed on a podcast herself. And so she was asking me for some pointers and things like that. And I told her, I was like, just be yourself. Like that's such a big part of it. Things like that. And it's gotta be tough because in this, like, playing the character even, and you and I have talked about it. Like we're not a big fan of some of the AEW refs because they're too involved in the match. Like they're just far too animated. There you go. it was Edge. Cena jumping over Edge, going for an RKO. Oh, Cena pushing off the RKO into a spear from Edge.
Holy shit.
AA super kick. Cena falls on Orton.
Wow.
Was that 3?
That was 3. That is the match.
Wow, that's the match. All right.
Dude, that was a hell of a finish.
Crazy finish. Oh, my God.
Holy shit.
Fans are up on their feet.
So what all just happened there?
That was, you had everybody going for finishers and spears.
I'm sure they're going to show it again. Let's keep this on and
we'll keep talking
and wait for the replay. I mean, this was that was a hell of a finish.
With especially all 4 guys are in the ring. Like, I feel like that's rare to see. It wasn't I say clean finish, but to not have, to have all 4 guys in there and not have it get sloppy.
All right, there you go. So
missing the AA, spear, AA to Edge, super kick. Cena falls on Orton. Kyoto recognizes it, and then Michaels tries to get there after realizing what he did. Hey, can't. That's a good spear. Oof, it's always a good spear from him. He's definitely one of the best.
Wow.
Hits it, and there's the super kick.
That is a hell of a finish. Wow, that was awesome.
That was great, too. Michaels diving at the end there. Wow. Okay.
Let's get into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
Okay, what'd you think?
That was and all the research I did not read about the exact how the finish played out, and I'm glad I didn't. Like, I think even reading it, I wouldn't have known like how it was going to play out because it's just a lot of action. There's just things happening, and it made sense. Like, we don't always get that, but that made a ton of sense.
I liked it. I mean, that was, I really liked it. That was a hell of a finish.
Right. Wow. Okay. So, wow. Well, getting into it, what happened? So, of course, we had the crazy finish with finishers and all kinds of things happening. You've got Michaels and Cena kind of yelling at each other at this point, too. But, like, what happened with all these guys after the fact? So, getting into it. So, Cena actually started feuding with the great Khali. Khali kind of declaring that he wanted a shot at Cena's championship. So, over the next couple of months, Cena actually feuded with him. He was actually the first person to defeat the great Khali by submission. That was actually at Judgment Day, and then pinfall at One Night Stand. It was a Falls Count Anywhere match. And so just that's how that played out. So you got Michaels and Cena are kind of yelling at each other in the ring still. I still got it on. I don't know if you do, but Michaels and his storyline, he actually started feuding with Randy Orton. It was Randy Orton kind of declaring that he could beat Michaels. This was not the kind of what was happening and things like that. And kind of the crossover on this is when he was getting into the legend killer persona as well too. So at this time he had taken out Rob Van Dam, Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, like those, that type of stuff happening. And so had an interview. This was too, as well, the Michaels fake collapsing as well too, in his match against Orton as well. Kind of beating him up on the stretcher and things like that. And so Michaels, he actually, that piece of it, he was actually storyline given a concussion after the Orton beatdown because he had to have surgery. He actually came back and Sweet Chin Music Orton after, like, at the end of this 2007. And so, kind of interesting how that played out. But this is actually also and I didn't realize this kind of 2 months, 3 months after this pay-per-view and kind of a little bit before, when Orton was doing the Legend Killer stuff, this is the first time that he started being referred to as the Viper. And so it would have been 2007, which we always hear that and stuff like that. And of course it's, stalking his victims, stalking his prey and things like that. But it was in this period in 2007 when he was first started to be called the Viper. December. And so I didn't realize exactly when it was. And so Edge, though, went on. He actually started feuding with the Money in the Bank winner, Mr. Kennedy. So all these guys really, in a lot of ways, kind of went their separate ways once this was done, other than kind of Michaels and Orton for just a little bit here. So, but Edge, too, taking on Mr. Kennedy as well, too, who had the briefcase. He wanted the briefcase. This was still early, I say, in the kind of Money in the Bank era. Edge was actually the first person to get the Money in the Bank briefcase twice. And he was actually the first person to do it not in a ladder match. And so kind of trivia for you today. Of course, when he beat Kennedy at this point to get the briefcase from him. And so he actually ended up cashing in against the Undertaker. I kind of went back and watched it. Actually, it's kind of cash in. It was a beatdown from Mark Henry, and then it was a match against Batista, and then a beatdown from Mark Henry, and then Edge came to cash in. It was actually interesting. Like, there was some crossover there because at the time, Edge was a member of SmackDown, or excuse me, he was on Raw. He became a member of SmackDown from when he kind of cashed in his briefcase and stuff like that. It was interesting. And this is when he had to give up the belt because of a injury. But it was interesting, too, because it was so early in kind of the Money in the Bank conception. Like, people didn't know how to react. And so there really wasn't like an above average pop for when he cashed in. They were very slow. They were very slow about announcing it, like kind of, what was happening and things like that. And so fans were like, they just weren't, they weren't popping as like you and I would expect. I think like when Dean cashed in on Seth and things like that. I think it was Seth. Yeah. And so, yeah, it just, little things like that. It was just kind of interesting how it plays. So like I said, these guys kind of going their separate ways, but, still involved. And they had like I say, some longer feuds before this. So it does kind of make sense to go separate ways, but still good storylines. Like I'd say wrestling was hot at this point. And so I wasn't watching as much in 2007, but still, good stuff though.
Yeah. Real good stuff. I mean, this is, little forgotten, but there's a lot of stuff that happened in this era that I, for whatever reason, just don't remember. It's like kind of the shift of like, again, now we're getting brand splits, we're getting ECW, we're getting invasions. I mean, it's just, there got to be a certain point, where more and more stuff was happening, and just things slipped through the cracks.
Yeah. So where do these guys rank? Kind of what do we got in the reviews, things like that. So John Cena was number 1, PWI in 2007. John Cena 1, Edge 2, Shawn Michaels 6, Randy Orton 15. And so this is probably like, in regards to number of competitors, this is definitely the highest ranked match that we've ever covered in regards if you're just looking at the PWI. And so kind of the overall, so Observer newsletter on this one, your favorite. There was a shock, and this is the quote I said at the beginning. There was a shocking lack of interest in the WWE Backlash pay-per-view, which is too bad since it ended up being one of the best WWE shows in a long time. This is a hell of a show, bell to bell. Undercard was strong with no bad matches. Taker and Batista was just slightly below what they did at WrestleMania. Finish really sucked though. And the main event 4-way was excellent. Good guys had a meeting early, which upset the bad guys. So the good guys punched him, and then Shawn went right after Cena. Heels tossed them, acted like they were going to team up, but then got into a brawl themselves. So everyone hates each other, basically. 4.5 stars, which, yeah, it makes sense. They hate each other. They've had a lot of feuds. You don't really need more than that. So couple other interesting, right? So the last 3 to 4 minutes were just wall-to-wall action, and the intrigue with all the forming and fading alliances just added to the match. The only knock is that I never had the feeling that Cena's title was in jeopardy to anyone but Michaels, making the heels little more than props. Minor gripe, though. This was a 3.5 stars, and then they kind of keep writing. Backlash usually delivers every year, and this one was no exception. I like a more relaxed version of WrestleMania where they can let it all hang out. The aspect that really stood out for me was the actual booking of matches. Most of the matches had some sort of new spot or something that played off of other matches. Give the agents a raise. 2 very good world title matches and a quality U.S. title match add up to a fun pay-per-view for all. So you got 4.5, you got 3.5. Tom, what do you have?
So our payoff score, and again, we do it 1 to 10 based on the build, the payoff, and the aftermath. I'm going to give this a 7.5. I thought, really good build, fun match, nothing out of this world extraordinary, but really, really strong finish. So yeah, I got no problem with this at all. 7.5. What about you?
I probably would have given it a 7 until the final, and then I give it an extra half because and it makes sense because you and I were both kind of shocked. It's exciting for you and I to be sitting here and be genuinely shocked by what we see sometimes, in a good way, not like a chair shot shock, but like to have something like that happen and we're like, damn, like that was actually like, it was just a good wrestling match. Like sometimes like that's just what you and I want is just, hey, like put on I want to be sports entertained, and that's what I was. And so, hey, thanks for that. So a couple 7.5s all around, like that works for me. Absolutely. Final thoughts?
Well, no final thoughts, man. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. More Backlash next week. More Backlash this month. Just all kinds of good wrestling this month.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, next week we're talking about the first ever Backlash.
That's right. 1999. One of your favorite eras. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, well, as always, thank you for joining us on an all-new episode of The Payoff.